Hello, in this video I'm going to walk you through the explicit proxy authentication process from the proxy standpoint. So I'm not going to delve into how NTLM works and how Kerberos works and how the S-channel user net logon service between the proxy and the domain controller works. It's all from the 407 challenge standpoint on an explicit proxy. So first of all, I'm going to go to configuration and scroll down to authentication realms and domains, and I will show you kind of what I have in the lab. So I've got two domains here. I call this one cloud, and that's the one that this proxy is currently joined to using the integrated Windows authentication method. So Iowa Direct. And I've got two realms. I've got this dummy one that's just for my UP EWSS tenant, and I've got this cloud one. So the cloud realm uses the cloud domain. If I go inside it, you can see there's the domain, and I click here on show to see the other settings. And what I wanted to show is that all three authentication modes are enabled on this realm. So Kerberos, NTLM, and basic. Okay, now let's jump into the presentation. So this screenshot here in the top right is what I just showed you on the proxy, and I wanted to point out that when all three are enabled, this is what the HTTP response to the connect tunnel is going to look like. Proxy is going to list them in the order of priority from highest to lowest. So proxy is going to prefer Kerberos first if it is ticked, then NTLM, followed by basic. Notice that the basic directive on the proxy authenticate header lists the realm name as well. The response, however, does not have to list the realm. Okay, so, and what you can also see here that, there's the connect here that hit the proxy, looks like Chrome looking at the user agent string on the connect, and the proxy came back with 407. And the next thing to notice is that proxy came back with the authentication failed access deny exception page. That is expected. The first round of authentication on this first TCP socket is always going to look like this. The only difference, of course, is going to be that which are the modes that the proxy provides here, and they are taken from this setting here. Also notice that the possible combination of these three are these five listed here. And the important thing here to note is that you cannot have Kerberos ticked without NTLM ticked. So as you can see here, the first use case and second one have got Kerberos, and they both have got NTLM. I don't have any use case here where there is Kerberos only. Okay, and just an FYI here, I'm not going to go much into this, but there are kind of three modes then when it comes to the surrogate on a proxy, on explicit proxy, and that's auto, proxy, and proxy IP. Auto means that whatever the proxy is, either transparent or explicit, the proxy will decide which one to use for explicit proxy. Since we are talking about explicit here, it will set it to proxy, which is the next one. And proxy surrogate means that this is a TCP socket surrogate only. So that means that if you send 20 HTTP 1.1 gets over this one authenticated socket, you will only have to authenticate one, and that's at the start, at the establishment, during the connect tunnel. And after that, you can send as many gets, post, head, puts as you want. Even if the sockets stay open for, I don't know, hours, it will be one authentication only, because it's the same socket. Proxy IP mode is the one where you use the client IP as a surrogate on the socket. So that means that if your client Bob sends the first connect to Google, gets authenticated. If Bob's IP then stays same, Bob can then go to YouTube, Yahoo, BBC, CNN. He won't be challenged because we have authenticated him on that IP. He won't be challenged for the period of X, which is again a configurable value inside the policy. So if I go here, these are the settings that you can play with. So by default is set to 900 seconds, which is 15 minutes. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So let's kind of walk through this step by step again to reinforce the flow. So this is using basic authentication. It's the first socket, and there isn't the authorization, the proxy authorization header already in the first socket, right? So you get the socket open, source IP, source port, destination IP, destination port. Since we are explicit, this is the destination IP and port of the proxy. Here's the proxy. The proxy reads them and decide, you know, do you have a listener? Do you have a service for this? Yes. If so, I intercept it. So that's a SYN ACK. An ACK. The TCP handshake is now complete. We've got an open and established TCP socket. Client sends the connect. That's going to look something like this. The two mandatory lines are just the first two. The connect and the host. The user agent string is not mandatory, neither is the proxy connection, you know, keep live header. Hits the proxy on HTTP proxy, and the proxy goes, okay, do I have an existing surrogate in my surrogate table? These are the two that are in the surrogate table. There is Bob and Elvis. They have got these IPs. My source IP is 10.10.10.150, therefore the answer is no. Therefore the proxy will 407 challenge the client back. So and then the socket gets of course closed. There's nothing else to be done. Part of this, so these are just the headers, but you would get the exception page here listed. That was on slide 1. Okay, now we then get a second socket now. So I notice that I have highlighted the port here in blue. It's different port. In the first socket it was 65. In fact, I think I made a typo. This is meant to be 124. The first one was 123. So this is the next one up. It doesn't have to be necessary the next one up. It could be 65128. It all depends what is available on the client, but the important bit is that it is a different port. It's a new socket. It's the proxy again, intercept, TCP handshake done, client sends the connect. This time notice that there's an extra line here, extra header. Proxy authorization header has got the basic directive. Notice that I did not include the realm, it's not mandatory. And the full bar string here, you know, represents the base64 encoded user :password. And that gets sent to the proxy. Proxy again check. Do I have got a surrogate? No, I do not for this IP, right? So no surrogate exists. I need to authenticate. And of course, proxy then opens the S-channel connection on TCP 445, target the netlogon service on the Active Directory domain controller, does the authentication, and of course the result is that the user gets authenticated. But like I said, this demo does not look at the upstream connection. It's really what's between client and the proxy. Okay. Last example is a basic authentication, but this is a first socket, and this time it includes the authorization header from the start. So the flow is here exactly the same as the previous slide. The difference, of course, is that there is only one TCP socket now, and that's because This, you normally see this with any API clients. Browser would never do this. Browsers would always authenticate with at least 2 TCP sockets. The first one is the one that always fails because browser never includes the proxy authorization header in the first socket. The browser just reads that, okay, I've got a proxy or pack file, I'm sending the, connect. If it is not a connect, if it is not SSL, then just a get. And it waits always to be challenged by the proxy, always waits. So the first socket is always wasted socket. It's then the second one that browser then goes, okay, well, the proxy challenged me with 407. I need to send the next last socket. I need to first decide, can I do Kerberos? If not, can I do NTLM? If not, do I do basic, right? And then based on that, the proxy then sends the second socket with the proxy authorization header with the correct directive. In this example, basic. But a lot of the time, APIs, like written in Java, Python, so on, they don't necessarily follow this, flow. They oftentimes work like what's on a screen now, where the very first TCP socket has already got the credentials in the basic form. And okay, this is all same. Yeah, I have to authenticate, so on. Now, next slide, I kind of wanted to show what this looks like in a PCAP, right? So we've got 2 TCP streams, 228 and 229. I've kind of highlighted the 2 connects, the 2 different sockets as well. So this is the first TCP socket, start to finish. You got the TCP handshake, the connect, proxy challenge with 407, and that's it. Socket is closed by the proxy with the FINAC. There's nothing else to do. And then, of course, my browser here went, this is what it looks like. This is the UTF-8 encoded HTTP headers, right? Again, I did not include the exception page, but there is an exception page as well, the authentication failed one. And then my browser goes and establishes the second socket here. I didn't, so there's more here, of course. I kind of snipped this at the end of, so the end here is actually the start of the SSL handshake, which is the client hello from my client here. But you get idea that, there is a second socket here. Here is the SYNAC ACK, right? And then we've got a connect here to the same destination again. And this time that included my Kerberos blob from my domain join PC that can do Kerberos. And of course, after that, the proxy came back with HTTP 1.1, 200 status code, connection established. Of course, what you don't see in this PCAP is the lag between proxy and the AD, where and of course you don't see the like client getting the like Kerberos ticket from the Active Directory domain controller that is then inside this blob. This is what it looks like in UTF as UTF-8 encoded. There is that proxy authorization header here, followed by the negotiate directive, followed by this Kerberos blob here. And there's that 200 OK from the proxy. And that concludes the demo. Thank you.